The moment I stepped off the elevator, I knew something was wrong. Brightwave Creative had its own rhythm. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, people laughing too loudly to hide their stress. But this morning, the air felt thick, quiet, tense. Employees stared at their screens without typing. A few heads popped up over cubicles, then quickly ducked back down as I walked past. And then I saw it. Every single person was crammed into the glass conference room, except me. My pulse tightened. Meetings like this didn't happen without warning, and certainly not without me, the senior operations coordinator, the person who kept the chaos stitched together. Inside the room, at the head of the table, stood Eric Dalton, our CEO, our tyrant, the man whose confidence was built entirely on volume. He saw me, smiled sharply, tapped his watch.
"Ava," he called. "Join us. You're late."
I wasn't, but I entered anyway. 30 pairs of eyes following me with the same expression. I'm sorry. I'm scared. I wish this wasn't happening. Lena, my closest coworker, whispered, "Ava, just breathe." I sat. Eric waited until the room fell silent, then clasped his hands behind his back like he was about to deliver a speech he planned all weekend.
"This company," he began, "has been suffering from inefficiency."
His gaze slid directly to me.
"And today, we address the source."
A soft ripple moved through the room. Eric lifted a folder, my weekly report, and tossed it onto the table. Pages scattered across the floor as if he'd practiced the motion.
"This," he declared, "is unacceptable work."
I didn't move, didn't blink. Eric thrived on reactions. I refused to feed him one. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, but speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear.
"Ava Coleman, you have consistently underperformed, missed deadlines, shown zero initiative. You're dead weight."
People shifted uncomfortably. No one agreed, but no one dared speak. My throat stayed still, my face calm. I'd spent years letting silence be my shield. Eric straightened and announced,
"You're fired, effective immediately."
A collective gasp broke across the room.
"You may gather your things," he continued, "and security will escort you out. Consider this a courtesy."
He smirked at me, proud of himself. I stood slowly, gathering the pages he threw. My hands were steady, too steady, because while Eric believed he'd crushed me in front of the entire team, he didn't realize one thing. He wasn't firing a powerless woman. He was firing the owner of the building he was standing in. He just didn't know it yet. I looked him in the eye before walking out. "You have no idea what you've just set in motion." His smirk faltered, and I left the room in silence that wasn't defeat. It was the calm before consequences. The office felt even quieter after the door closed behind me, as if Eric had sucked all the air out just to watch people suffocate. I walked toward my desk with the security guard Mark trailing behind me, like someone escorting a prisoner. His face was tight with discomfort.
"Ava, I'm sorry. He gave the order. I have to walk you out."
I nodded gently. "I know. You're fine." He looked relieved and guilty all at once. As we moved past the cubicles, people pretended to be busy. Screens lit up. Typing sounds began. Too loud, too fast, too fake. It was the kind of silence that only came from fear. At my desk, I opened the drawer and began packing slowly. A notebook filled with handwritten systems and ideas. A pen my mother gave me. A ceramic mug Lena bought that said "Quiet Minds, Loud Impact." I wrapped my fingers around the mug, feeling a strange calm settle into place. Eric thought this moment would break me. He thought humiliation was the end. But he didn't understand humiliation the way women like me did, the kind you learn to carry without letting anyone see the weight. A soft voice behind me whispered, "Ava, don't go." I turned. Lena stood there, eyes already glassy. "He had no right," she said. "Everyone knows you keep this place from falling apart." I gave her a sad smile. "It's okay." "It's not," she insisted. "And, I'm sorry I didn't say anything." "You couldn't," I said. He made sure of that. Lena swallowed, guilt swimming across her face. Before either of us spoke again,
Eric's door swung open. He strutted across the room, basking in the aftermath of his performance. "Make sure she hands over her badge," he said to Mark, loud enough to draw eyes. Then he looked right at me. "You know," he said smugly, "this will be better for you, too. Now you can find something that actually matches your skill level." I slipped my badge off, handed it to Mark, and met Eric's eyes with a calmness that made his smirk hesitate for half a second. "You really believe you control everything here?" I said quietly. That bothered him. He didn't respond, but his jaw twitched, the only clue that my composure unnerved him. The elevator dinged. Time to go. I turned to Lena and squeezed her hand. "I'll be okay." She nodded shakily. "Text me, please." "I will." Mark pressed the elevator button. The door slid open with a soft chime. Before stepping in, I paused, taking one last look at the office, a place built on talent and creativity, but ruled by fear. Eric didn't see people, only pawns. He didn't see effort, only obedience. He didn't see me, only someone he believed couldn't fight back. He saw everything except the one truth that mattered. This was my building, my mother's legacy, my name on the deed he had never bothered to read. I stepped into the elevator, and as the doors closed, the mirror-like panel showed me my own reflection. Not defeated, not lost, not small, just calm, focused. A woman who knew something Eric didn't. He didn't fire dead weight. He provoked the one person with the power to uproot his entire company, and his ignorance? That was going to cost him more than he could imagine. The elevator descended steadily. By the time it opened into the lobby, I already knew where I was going next. Straight to the only person in Seattle who knew the real truth behind CP Group. Dana Carver. The walk to Coleman Property Group took less than 10 minutes, but each step felt like shedding the version of me Brightwave believed they could discard. The cold Seattle air cleared my head. The humiliation Eric intended barely clung to me anymore. Something steadier had taken its place. I looked up once at the brick building behind me, the one he thought he controlled, and kept moving. Inside the glass lobby of CPG, the receptionist stood the moment she saw me. "Ava, Dana's in her office. She said to send you straight in." I didn't knock. I didn't have to. Dana swung her door open before I touched the handle. "There you are," she said, pulling me inside. "I swear, Ava, if he..." "He did," I said simply. She stared at me, jaw tightening. "He fired you." "In front of everyone," I confirmed. Dana sat behind her desk and opened her laptop with the focus of someone preparing for battle. "Start from the top." I told her what happened, the meeting, the tone, the insults, the public dismissal. I didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. The truth was sharp enough on its own. By the end, Dana exhaled through her teeth. Unbelievable. No, actually, completely believable. That man treats this building like a disposable prop. She clicked open Brightwave's tenant profile. A long list of warnings and violations filled the screen. 3 months behind on rent, she said, pointing. Fire code citations, unauthorized renovations, overcapacity. They've ignored every notice. I stared at the list, my calm hardening into something more definitive. "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" I asked. "You had enough on your plate," Dana said. "But now?" I pulled up the lease Eric had signed years ago. There, in bold print, landlord, CP Group LLC, authorized officer, A. Coleman. My mother's legacy, my signature, my building. Eric fired someone he didn't bother to understand. Dana folded her arms. "So what do you want to do?" The question wasn't heavy. It wasn't complicated. It was overdue. "What are my options?" I asked. She tapped a few keys. "Well, legally, you can terminate their lease, 72 hours to vacate. The violations give us full authority." I felt no thrill, no vengeance, only clarity. "Prepare the notice." I said. Dana grinned. I hoped you'd say that. She began typing with relentless precision, drafting the termination letter line by line. The printer hummed moments later, spitting out 4 crisp pages that could change the course of Brightwave's entire existence. This is the part, she said, handing me a pen, where you stop playing by their rules. I signed. It felt like placing a period at the end of a sentence that had dragged on far too long. We'll deliver it together, Dana said, but you'll need one more person. I knew who she meant before she said it. Michael, I asked. Michael, she confirmed. If Eric tries anything, he'll shut it down. I stood, the signed notice in my hand, not shaking, not angry, just ready. Eric believed firing me was his power move, but he had no idea the real game had already shifted. The building he weaponized against me was the same building that could now remove him. And I was done being quiet about it. Michael met us in the lobby, a calm, sharp presence in a navy suit holding a sleek black briefcase. He gave me a small nod. Ready? He asked. I was. More than I had expected to be. The 3 of us stepped into the elevator. The ride felt tight with unspoken purpose. My heartbeat stayed steady, not from lack of fear, but from certainty. What I was doing wasn't revenge. It was correction. When the doors opened on the 5th floor, the office buzz died instantly. Conversations cut off. Fingers froze above keyboards. Lena spotted me first, her expression shifting from shock to relief. Ava? She whispered, approaching cautiously. I'm okay, I said. I'll explain after this. Before she could ask anything else, Eric's voice boomed from across the room. Oh, you have got to be kidding me! He strode toward us as if the floor belonged to him. His confidence was brittle, but he hadn't realized it yet. You can't be here, he snapped. You've been terminated. This is trespassing. Michael stepped forward, calm and direct. She's here in her capacity as building ownership. Eric blinked, confused. What are you talking about? Dana handed him the termination envelope. Your company is being served notice. Eric tore it open, scanning the first lines. His face drained. 72 hours to vacate? He choked. On what grounds? Multiple, Michael said. Delinquent rent, code violations, unauthorized renovations, overcapacity. Eric shook his head violently. No, this is insane. I don't even know this landlord. CP Group, whatever. They can't do this. I stepped forward. They can, I said quietly, and they are. His gaze snapped to me, anger twisting his features. You don't have the authority to— I do, I said. CP stands for Coleman Property Group. Confusion flickered. Then comprehension hit him hard enough to rock him back a step. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. My mother owned this building, I said calmly. Now I do. The room fell into stunned silence. Lena covered her mouth. Tom's eyes went wide. Heather froze mid-email. Eric looked between the notice, me, and the floor he thought he commanded. You mean I fired your— He couldn't finish the sentence. His disbelief would have been almost funny if the moment wasn't so serious. This is a mistake, he stammered. We can work this out. Ava, come on. You can't do this to us. You did it to yourself, I replied. For the first time since I met him, Eric had no performance to hide behind, no volume to drown out accountability, just panic. You have 72 hours, Michael said firmly. Complying will prevent further legal action. Eric looked around helplessly, searching for someone to speak on his behalf. No one did. Not this time.
I held his gaze, steady and unflinching. You called me useless, I said softly. Today you learn I never was. He didn't respond. He couldn't. The ground beneath him had shifted, and for once, he couldn't pretend he didn't feel it. Eric stood frozen, gripping the notice like it might change if he squeezed hard enough. The office was painfully silent, every employee caught between shock and the strange relief of seeing a truth finally surface. He tried to steady himself. Ava, listen, we can fix this. I'll retract the termination. You can have your job back, a raise, just don't do this. His voice cracked at the end. I'm not negotiating, I said. This isn't personal. It's legal. Tom stepped forward, unusually quiet. Eric, she's the landlord. We can't fight this. Eric spun on him. Shut up. You don't know anything. Heather from HR cleared her throat softly. He's right, Eric. We've had violations for months. You ignored all of them. Eric's face twisted. You're siding with her? I'm siding with the truth, Heather said, surprising even herself. A few employees nodded, not openly rebelling, but no longer willing to protect the man who'd made their lives miserable. Eric looked back at me, eyes wild. You don't understand. This company is everything I have. You're taking it away. I'm not, I said. You're just losing the building you misused. He paced, running both hands through his hair. Then give us more time. 90 days, 60, anything. 72 hours. Michael repeated firmly. The violations give the landlord full authority. Eric glared at him. Nobody asked you. Dana closed her folder. You'll need to start packing today. The room absorbed the words like a final verdict. Lena stepped closer to me and whispered, Are you okay? I nodded. Are you? She gave a tiny, relieved smile. Honestly, better than I felt in months. Eric suddenly slammed the notice onto a desk. This is a power trip. That's all this is. She's doing this because I fired her. No, I said quietly. You fired me because you underestimated me. You're losing the office because you broke the lease. He stared at me, hurt, furious, and terrified all at once. Then something in him snapped. So what now? He asked, voice hollow. You ruin everything and walk away like some kind of hero? I walk away, I said, knowing I finally stopped you from hurting people who didn't deserve it. A murmur of agreement spread across the room, soft but undeniable. For the first time, Eric realized no one was standing with him, no backup, no loyalty, just silence, the same silence he used to wield over everyone else. His voice dropped to a whisper. What am I supposed to do? Start packing, I answered gently. He staggered back, like the words physically hit him. Michael stepped forward. We'll return tomorrow to confirm progress. Dana added, and we expect full cooperation. Eric didn't speak again. He just stared at the floor, trembling slightly, as if the weight of his own actions had finally landed. I turned toward the door. I didn't look back, because this moment wasn't about punishing him. It was about freeing everyone he'd been holding down, including me. I barely made it 3 steps into the hallway before voices rose behind me, not shouting, just raw, shaken disbelief. How did he not know she owned the building? 3 months of unpaid rent? Seriously? I can't believe he talked to her like that. Their words chased me, but I kept moving. I didn't want to stand there while they rewrote their image of me. I needed air. Lena caught up, breathless. Ava, wait. I turned to her. You should be with the team. They'll survive, she said. Thank you. For what? I asked softly. For not leaving us to deal with him alone. Her gratitude warmed something in me that the morning had tried to freeze over. You deserve better leadership, I said. All of you do.
She squeezed my hand briefly before heading back inside, shoulders a little straighter than before. The elevator doors closed behind me, and the office disappeared like a chapter sliding shut. Downstairs, Michael and Dana joined me in the lobby. Michael checked his watch. He'll comply. Fear tends to speed up cooperation. Dana shook her head. He never imagined you'd be the one person he couldn't control. I stepped outside, breathing in crisp air that felt like relief and renewal blended together. Take today, Michael said. Tomorrow we'll return to ensure they're packing. After that, it's just procedure. And paperwork, Dana added with a smirk. Lots of paperwork. I nodded, absorbing it all. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like gravity correcting itself. We parted ways and I walked toward the cafe on the corner, somewhere to sit, breathe, and understand how drastically my life had shifted in just 2 hours. Inside, the warm smell of coffee grounded me. I found a corner table and set my bag down, finally letting the weight of the morning settle. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You didn't have to do this. Please, let's talk. Eric. I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned it face down. He wasn't asking for understanding. He was asking for a way out. I stirred my coffee slowly. The real consequences hadn't even begun yet. Eric wasn't facing the loss of a job or a bad day. He was facing the collapse of the environment he built, the one where he held all the power and everyone else held their breath. Now he was breathing the air he created. Another buzz, another message. Please, I'm begging you. I can't lose everything. A flicker of something moved through me. Not pity, but the quiet awareness that downfall always feels unfair to the one who caused it. I typed a simple reply. Focus on packing. We'll be back tomorrow. No anger, no cruelty, just direction. Because this was no longer personal. It was process. I set the phone aside and took a slow sip of coffee. Tomorrow we would return. Tomorrow his unraveling would become real. And tomorrow I would walk back into that office not as an employee, not as a victim, but as the owner of the building where his kingdom finally fell. The next morning the building lobby felt different, quieter, lighter. Like the tension Brightwave dragged through the halls had finally loosened its grip. Michael, punctual as always, met me by the elevators. Ready? He asked. I nodded. Let's see how much progress Eric made. Dana joined us moments later carrying a clipboard. If he's smart, he's already halfway out. The elevator doors opened on the 5th floor. The sight that greeted us said everything. Blocks, stacked files, rolled up posters, employees quietly packing their desks, moving with a kind of relieved urgency. It looked less like chaos and more like release. Lena noticed me first and hurried over. Ava, hi. They started packing last night. No yelling, no threats, just reality. How's everyone holding up? I asked. Honestly, better now that the truth's out. Before I could reply, a door slammed. Eric emerged from his office, hair disheveled, eyes sunken from a night without sleep. He froze when he saw me. You came back, he said, voice brittle. I said I would, I replied. He gestured angrily around the room. Look at this. Look at what you're doing to my company. I didn't do this, I said. You violated the lease. This is the consequence. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I can't rebuild if we leave. Clients expect us here. You should have thought about that before ignoring 3 months of warnings, Michael added. Eric shot him a glare, then turned back to me, desperation replacing rage. You don't understand, he whispered. Without this space, everything falls apart. There are other offices, I said gently. You'll adapt. His face twisted. You don't get it. This place was my identity. And that's the problem, I replied. You built a company on fear instead of respect. Behind him, employees paused, listening. Heather stepped forward, surprising us both. She's right, Eric. This environment was breaking people. Tom nodded reluctantly. We're exhausted. This move might be the first good thing that's happened here. Eric stared at them, stunned that no one defended him. Everyone's turning on me, he choked. No, I said. They're finally breathing. Silence stretched between us. He looked at the boxes, the cleared desks, the staff working quietly without panic. This wasn't supposed to happen, he whispered. Change never is, I said. Dana scanned the room. You're on schedule. Keep packing. We'll check in again later today. Eric didn't move. His shoulders sagged as if years of inflation had suddenly deflated. I walked past him toward the exit. He didn't stop me. He didn't speak. For the first time, he wasn't performing. He was just a man facing the truth he tried so hard to avoid, and the office, finally free of his control, felt like it was exhaling with him. By late afternoon, the 5th floor no longer looked like an office. It looked like a transition. Half-packed desks, labeled boxes, employees sorting supplies with the calm efficiency of people no longer afraid of making noise. The mood wasn't heavy. It was strangely hopeful. Dana checked her clipboard. They're on track. Better than I expected. Michael nodded. Fear made them freeze. Freedom makes them productive. As we stepped further inside, I noticed something new. People weren't shrinking themselves. They were talking, laughing quietly, working at a pace that wasn't tied to Eric's moods. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The kind of atmosphere that grows only after the storm has passed. Eric emerged from his office again, but this time, he didn't bark or posture. He just watched the room with a hollow expression, like a king realizing the kingdom had never truly belonged to him. He walked toward me slowly. Ava, he said, voice low. Is there anything I can say to change this? No, I answered gently. Not because I hate you, but because this is what the lease requires. He let out a broken laugh. The lease. I never even read the damn thing. That's part of the problem, I said. His shoulders slumped. He looked less angry now and more lost. I wasn't always like this, he murmured. I used to be decent, driven. Then everything became pressure, and pressure became this. He gestured weakly at the half-empty office. You can be better still, I said, but not here, not like this. He nodded, eyes dropping. I guess I deserve that. Heather approached, clipboard in hand. We need your signature for inventory checks. Eric signed without argument. Not the tyrant from before, just a man taking responsibility, piece by piece. When Heather walked away, he whispered, People used to be scared of me. They didn't respect you, I corrected. There's a difference. He winced, but didn't deny it. Around us, the staff kept packing, their movements lighter than yesterday. Lena approached with the small box in her arms. We're arranging carpools to the temporary space, she told me. It's tiny, but everyone said they'd rather be cramped together than stay one more hour under his rules. Eric heard her, and his face cracked, but he didn't snap back. He simply turned away, absorbing the truth quietly. Michael checked his watch. We'll return in the morning for final verification. Dana added, You're ahead of schedule. That's good. Eric stayed silent. As we reached the elevator, he called out softly, Ava, thank you. I paused. For what? I asked. For not humiliating me the way I humiliated you. I held his gaze. I don't need to hurt you to prove anything. Life is already teaching you what you refuse to learn. He nodded slowly, accepting it. When the elevator doors closed, I exhaled, not from relief, but from clarity. Brightwave wasn't collapsing. It was shedding its old skin. And tomorrow, when we returned for the final check, the last piece of Eric's power would fall away, leaving room for something better to grow in its place. The next morning, the building felt unusually calm. No tension, no hurried footsteps, just quiet readiness. Like everyone was waiting for a page to turn. Michael, Dana, and I rode the elevator up together. None of us spoke. We didn't need to. The purpose was clear. When the doors opened, Brightwave's office was almost unrecognizable. Desks empty, walls bare, boxes stacked neatly by the exit. It looked less like a workplace and more like the end of a long chapter. Lena approached first, a small smile softening her tired features. "We're finishing the last load," she said. "It's oddly peaceful." I nodded. "How's everyone holding up?" "Better than expected," she said. "Leaving feels like letting out a breath we've been holding for years." She headed off to help the others. Her steps felt lighter now. Michael scanned the room with a critical eye. "They've complied fully." Dana checked her clipboard. Only Eric's office left. The mention of his name shifted something in the air. We walked toward the glass door at the end of the hall. It was half open. Inside, Eric was packing the last of his things. A single box half filled sitting on his desk. His movements were slow, deliberate, like each item was heavier than it should have been. He looked up when he heard us. "Oh, you're here." No anger, no bitterness, just resignation. "We're here for the final check," Michael said. Eric nodded. "Yeah, I'm almost done." He taped the box shut, exhaling deeply. "This office, it was everything to me. I thought it made me powerful." "It didn't," I said gently. "How you treated people did." He swallowed hard. "Then I guess that's where everything went wrong." For a moment, the room felt human. Just a handful of people standing in the remains of a life built on the wrong foundation. Eric reached for his box, then paused. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. I nodded. "Why didn't you rub this in my face? You had every chance. You could have made a scene. You could have destroyed me publicly." "I don't need to," I said. "You're already learning what you need to." He let out a shaky breath, something between a laugh and a sigh. "Fair enough." Dana cleared her throat. "Everything looks in order. Once you leave the premises, we'll finalize the termination." Eric glanced around his empty office, eyes lingering on the windows, the walls, the desk where he once barked orders and controlled the room. "Okay," he said softly. "I'm ready." He picked up the box and walked toward us. No theatrics, no last attempt at control, just acceptance. As he passed the staff, they didn't shrink or avoid his eyes. Some nodded. Some gave small, polite goodbyes. Not out of loyalty, out of closure. At the door, Eric turned to me one last time. "I was wrong about you," he said. "About a lot of things." I nodded once. "Then take that lesson with you." X swallowed and walked out. Just like that. The man who once ruled this office with fear left it behind, with nothing but a cardboard box and an overdue understanding of humility. Michael exhaled. "It's done." Dana smiled softly. "The space is officially yours again." I looked around the empty floor, the place where I once worked quietly, unnoticed, underestimated. Now it stood silent for a different reason. The storm had passed, and the rebuilding could finally begin. Once Eric was gone, the silence left behind felt different, lighter, almost echoing with relief. Employees moved with purpose, clearing the last items, chatting in low, steady tones that had never existed under his leadership. Lena approached with a small notebook in her hands. "We made a list," she said. Everyone wanted to contribute. "To what?" I asked. She smiled. "To help. Finding new jobs, recommendations, temporary space setups. People finally feel safe enough to think ahead." I flipped through the notebook. Names, roles, contact info, even small notes like "great under pressure" and "creative problem solver." It was proof of something powerful. Fear had been the only thing holding them still. "You all did this overnight?" I asked. Lena shrugged. "It's easier to work when nobody's yelling." Michael checked the empty office. "We'll begin formal inspections today. After that, the space is yours to repurpose." The idea of it, my mother's building, finally under my control, sent a quiet spark through me. For the first time, the 5th floor didn't feel like Brightwave. It felt like possibility. "It's strange," Lena said softly, "seeing the office like this, but it doesn't feel sad." "No," I said. "It feels honest." Heather from HR approached with a box of files. "We salvaged the employees' records before Eric could wipe anything. People are grateful you didn't leave them hanging." "I wasn't going to," I said. "They never deserved what he put them through." She nodded, relief visible in the slump of her shoulders. "I think everyone is finally starting to believe that." As the last boxes rolled toward the elevators, the floor faded into quiet emptiness. Bare desks, bare walls, a space stripped of fear. Dana wandered to the center of the room and looked around. "You know," she said, "this floor would make a great co-working space, or a creative hub, or anything that isn't run by someone who thinks volume equals leadership." I laughed softly. It was the first real laugh I'd felt in days. "That's the plan," I said. Michael snapped a photo for the records. "We'll finalize the legal handoff by this afternoon." One by one, the former employees approached me, some with small smiles, others with cautious gratitude. "Thank you, Ava. We didn't know how to say it before. You saved us." Each voice warmed me, but the truth was simple. They stressed themselves the moment they stopped fearing him. When the last elevator closed, the three of us stood in the empty space. Dana folded her arms. "This place is yours again. What's the first thing you want to do with it?" I looked out across the cleared floor, clean lines, open windows, morning light spilling in unfiltered. "Breathe," I said, and for the first time, the building felt like it was breathing with me. The 5th floor stayed quiet for a moment, sunlight stretching across the empty space like it was claiming it back. It didn't feel like the ghost of an office. It felt like a blank page. Dana tapped her pen against her clipboard. "So, what's next? You could lease it again, raise the rate, bring in someone who won't treat the building like a punching bag." Michael adjusted his glasses. "You could even convert it into private suites. The demand is high." Their suggestions floated around me, all practical, all possible, but none felt right. "I don't want to rush it," I said. "This place needs to reset." Michael nodded, respecting the pause. A building can hold energy, just like people do, and this one had been tense for years. We walked the floor slowly, the echo of our footsteps filling the spaces where shouting once echoed. I ran my fingers along the edge of a cleared desk. For the first time, I wasn't remembering my worst days here. I was imagining what could exist instead. Lena returned briefly, stepping out of the elevator with the final folder in hand. "Almost forgot," she said. "This is yours, all internal process documents. You might want to review them before you decide what's next." I accepted it. "Thank you." She hesitated, then asked, "Can I be honest?" "Always." She exhaled. "When you left yesterday, the whole team expected chaos, but instead, everyone felt relieved, like everything finally made sense." "People thrive with clarity," I said. "Not just clarity," she whispered. "Leadership." Her meaning wasn't lost on me. When she left again, Dana nudged me gently. "She's right, you know. You handled this whole situation like someone who's been leading quietly for a long time." "Quiet doesn't mean weak," I said. "And loud doesn't mean strong," she added. We reached the windows overlooking the street below. Cars moved, people crossed sidewalks. The world felt normal again. "Brightwave will survive," Michael said. "They'll rebuild, maybe even better, without him in charge." "He'll figure out who he wants to be," I said softly. This might be the first time he's had to. Dana raised a brow. "You're more forgiving than I would be." "I'm not forgiving him," I said. "I'm just letting him carry his own consequences." She smiled at that. We finished our walkthrough, marking notes for repairs and replacements. A few scuffs on the walls, loose tiles near the back, a burned-out light that flickered like it was letting go of its last argument. Small things, manageable things. When we reached the door, Michael closed his folder. "That's everything. Once I file the final documents, Brightwave's tenancy is officially terminated." A calm, steady satisfaction settled into me. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just complete. Dana locked the office door and handed me the key. "This belongs to you," she said. I closed my hand around it. A literal key, but also something more. This wasn't the end of a job or a company. It was the beginning of something I'd neglected without realizing it. My place, my authority, my voice in a building that had always been mine. We headed toward the elevator. As the doors opened, Dana asked, "So, what do you want this floor to become?" I stepped inside, the key still warm in my hand. "I'll tell you tomorrow," I said. I think the answer is still forming. And as the doors closed, I felt it, the shift from being someone erased to being someone undeniable. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. No alarm, no urgency, just a quiet sense of direction pulling me out of bed. For the first time in a long time, there was no dread in my chest. Only clarity. I grabbed a coffee to go and walked toward the building. The streets felt different now, as if the tension that once clung to the 5th floor no longer leaked into the sidewalk. Inside the lobby, the front desk receptionist smiled warmly. "Morning, Ava. Congratulations." I blinked. On what? She laughed. "The whole building knows what happened. Word travels fast." Of course it did. Upstairs, the 5th floor door opened easily with the key Dana gave me. The empty space greeted me like an exhale, sunlight pouring through the windows, casting long, golden beams across the bare floor. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt ready. I walked to the center of the room and turned slowly, taking in the open layout. What once felt cramped and suffocating now felt wide and full of potential. My phone buzzed. Lena. "We're all at the new temporary office. It's tiny, but the energy feels different. Good different. Just wanted you to know." I smiled. Brightwave's people would be okay. They weren't chained to Eric's downfall. They were finally free from it. I texted back. "You'll all land somewhere better. I know it." I slipped my phone away and let myself imagine possibilities. A community workspace, a creative hub, an incubator for small local startups, a place where people felt uplifted, not controlled. Something inside me clicked. This wasn't about filling space. This was about creating something my mother would have been proud of. As I drifted toward the window, I noticed a small folder left behind on the windowsill, probably missed during the move. Inside it were brainstorming notes written by Brightwave employees, ideas for improving workflow, notes about teamwork, lists of goals, none of which Eric ever let them act on. Reading through them felt like discovering voices that had been stifled for years, and suddenly I knew exactly what the 5th floor could become. A space where people like them, quiet thinkers, builders, creators, could grow without fear. A space built on everything Eric lacked: respect, collaboration, humanity. My phone buzzed again, this time a number I recognized instantly. Eric. "Thank you for being fair. I'm starting over. I hope someday I can prove I learned something from all this." I stared at the message for a moment. No anger rose, no satisfaction, just the quiet acceptance that life had finally caught up to him. I replied with a single line. "Used the lesson well." Then I put the phone away. This floor wasn't about him anymore. It was about what comes after him. As I stood in the center of the room again, sunlight warming my shoulders, the idea felt complete, solid, real. This floor wouldn't be leased out to just anyone. It would become something new, something good, something mine. And as that realization settled fully into place, I felt it, a shift inside me, gentle and certain. The story that began with being fired in front of 30 people was no longer about humiliation or revenge. It was about becoming the woman who didn't need someone else's approval to take up space. A woman finally stepping into a future she owned in a building that always belonged to her. I stayed on the 5th floor for a long moment, letting the quiet settle. It didn't feel like an empty office anymore. It felt like a decision waiting to be spoken out loud. Dana arrived a few minutes later, pushing the door open with her shoulder. "Thought I'd find you here," she said. "Looks different without all the chaos, doesn't it?" "Completely," I said. She joined me near the center of the room, taking in the sunlight, the open space, the calm that had taken over. "So," Dana said, "have you decided what this floor is going to be?" I nodded. "I want it to be a shared creative space," I said. "A place where small teams, freelancers, and people with ideas can work without fear. Somewhere collaborative, supportive." Dana raised a brow, impressed. "Like a community hub?" "Exactly. A space for people who were treated like background noise elsewhere." She smiled. "Your mother would love that."
I felt a warm tug in my chest. I think she would. We walked the perimeter together, noting areas for renovations. The meeting rooms could become private work pods. The open floor could hold collaborative stations. Even the old break room could transform into a cozy cafe-style corner. Everything about it felt right. "You've got a good vision for this," Dana said. "Something bright, welcoming, the opposite of what it was before. That's the goal." Just then, my phone buzzed again. "Lena, we found a small studio downtown to work from for now. Everyone keeps talking about how different it feels without Eric controlling everything. People are smiling, Ava. Smiling." I typed back, "You all deserve that. Keep going." Dana peeked over my shoulder. "They'll be okay. You helped more than you realize." I slipped my phone into my pocket. They helped themselves when they stopped being afraid. She handed me a notepad. "Start sketching ideas, paint colors, furniture layouts, anything that comes to mind." For the next hour, the two of us brainstormed. Soft lighting, open tables, quiet zones, workshops, a space that fostered creativity instead of crushing it. A space built on everything this building was meant to represent. Finally, Dana closed her notebook. "This place is going to thrive, Ava. It has to," I said. "It's time." Before we left, I took one last look at the open floor. Sunlight spilling across the hardwood. The air warm and still. The 5th floor of my mother's building had been used as a stage for someone else's ego. Now it was becoming a place where people could grow, not because of authority, not because of fear, but because someone believed they could. Dana locked the door behind us, the quiet click sealing the beginning of something new. As we walked to the elevator, she asked, "What are you going to call the space?" I smiled to myself. I think the name will come when it's ready, because for the first time, the future didn't feel like something I was enduring. It felt like something I was building. The next few days moved quickly. Renovation teams came and went, assessing the floor, measuring walls, jotting down notes about lighting and layout. The space felt alive again. Not noisy, not chaotic, just purposeful. I visited daily, moving through the open floor with a notebook in hand, sketching ideas and adjusting plans. Every corner seemed to hold new potential. On the 4th day, Dana met me upstairs carrying a stack of binders. "These are applications," she said. "Applications for what?" "For groups interested in renting space, but short-term, flexible, collaborative," she grinned. Word must have spread. People heard the 5th floor has new management with a heart. I flipped through them. Graphic designers, small marketing teams, independent coders, a nonprofit looking for a meeting space. People who wanted a place to grow, not just to work. "I didn't expect interest so soon," I admitted. "Well," Dana said, "a building owned by a quiet powerhouse tends to attract attention." I rolled my eyes, smiling. "I'm not a powerhouse. You handled an entire corporate meltdown without raising your voice. Believe me, that counts." Before I could reply, the elevator dinged and Lena stepped out. She glanced around with wide eyes. "Wow, it's completely transformed." "Still in progress," I said, "but getting there." She held a small envelope. "This is from the team." I opened it and found a handwritten card signed by every former Brightwave employee. "Thank you for giving us a future by taking back yours." My throat tightened. "They wanted you to know," Lena said softly. "None of us felt lost after leaving. It's like, once Eric was gone, everything finally made sense." And how's the temporary office? I asked. Cramped, she laughed, but calm. People are actually collaborating. No shouting, no fear. Good. They deserved that more than Eric ever understood. Lena glanced around again. Are you really turning this into a creative space? I am, I said. She smiled. Then I know at least 10 people who want to be first on the waiting list. We spent the next hour walking the floor together. I showed her design mock-ups, she offered practical suggestions, and Dana weighed in with rental considerations. It felt natural. 3 women shaping something meaningful. As evening approached, the renovation crew wrapped up and the building emptied. Dana left with a wave. Lena headed home. I stayed. Sunset spilled warm amber across the floor, reflecting off the polished concrete. I walked to the center of the room where everything felt the most still. This was no longer the space where I'd been humiliated. No longer the place where Eric barked orders. No longer a room filled with fear. It was a beginning. My beginning. I closed my notebook and pressed a hand to the smooth surface of the nearest column. Solid, unshaken, familiar. Let's build something good here, I whispered. For the first time in years, it felt like I wasn't speaking to a building, but to a future, finally opening its doors. A week later, the 5th floor looked nothing like its old self. Fresh paint softened the walls. New lights washed the space in a warm, welcoming glow. Plants lined the windowsills like small declarations of life. It wasn't finished, but it was finally taking shape. Dana arrived carrying a steaming coffee for each of us. You're officially a space creator now, she said, handing me one. All that's left is a name. I'd been thinking about that for days, scribbling ideas in notebooks, crossing out more than I kept. Nothing felt right. It needs to mean something, I said, not just sound good. Dana leaned against a pillar. What does this space represent to you? I looked around. Collaboration, safety, potential, but also something deeper. Something the old Brightwave could never offer. Freedom, I said. A place where people aren't afraid to show up. Dana nodded thoughtfully. Then start from there. We walked the floor again, and as we passed a corner where sunlight poured across the wooden beams, a memory surfaced. My mother, standing right here, years ago, telling me, buildings hold stories. Make sure the ones inside yours are worth remembering. That settled it. Later that afternoon, Lena visited with a few former coworkers. Their eyes widened as they stepped inside. This is incredible, one whispered. It actually feels inspiring, said another. Lena glanced at me. Any ideas for the name yet? I paused, then said it out loud for the first time. The Story Loft. The words fit immediately. A loft for creators, a space for new beginnings, a place where stories, personal, professional, everything in between, could be built without fear. Lena smiled. It's perfect. Dana agreed. It tells people exactly what this place is about. With the name set, everything accelerated. We drafted a mission statement. Michael began preparing the formal branding documents. Dana reached out to contractors to finalize furniture and layout. I found myself in meetings, consultations, design sessions, things I never expected would feel natural. But they did. Because this wasn't about running a business. It was about creating a space built on the opposite of everything Eric represented. Respect, support, creativity, humanity. Later that evening, after the last contractor left, I wandered the floor alone again. The new vision settled around me like warmth. The Story Loft. It felt right, like a name this building had been waiting for. I sat on the windowsill and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Brightwave was rebuilding. Somewhere out there, Eric was learning whatever lessons he managed to take from his downfall. But here, in this room, a different story had begun. One that didn't involve him anymore.
This space wasn't about revenge or victory. It was about growth. And as the sun dipped low, filling the floor with a gentle gold, I realized something simple but profound. Getting fired didn't break me. It freed me. The building my mother left behind wasn't just a structure anymore. It was a future, mine. The story loft came together faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, furniture arrived, workstations were assembled, and the space finally resembled the vision I'd carried in my head. Soft lighting, open tables, quiet corners designed for focus, a small lounge with warm colors and plants that softened the edges of the room. It felt alive. Dana stood beside me as the final chairs were placed. "Looks like you're ready," she said. "Almost," I replied. "Just need to open the doors." As if on cue, the elevator dinged and the first wave of applicants stepped out. Small teams, freelancers, creatives holding laptops and sketchbooks, people who had been waiting for a place like this. They entered slowly, eyes widening. "It feels peaceful," one whispered. "It feels like somewhere I'd actually want to work," another said. Their reactions confirmed everything. I greeted each group, offering short tours, explaining the purpose of the space, freedom to create, collaborate, and grow without fear. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. A nonprofit signed for a corner suite. A pair of young developers claimed a window desk. A freelance illustrator asked for a membership on the spot. The story loft was filling with new beginnings. As the day went on, Lena arrived with 2 of her former co-workers. They paused at the entrance, stunned by the transformation. "This place is beautiful," Lena said. "Nothing like what we were used to." "You built the energy," I told her. "You all did." She smiled, looking relieved and proud at the same time. "We actually came to ask something," she said. "Would you consider giving us a small space here? Just a room. We want to start our own mini creative agency." I blinked. "You're starting something together?" She nodded. "We realized we work better without fear, and we want a chance to build something good." My chest warmed. They weren't running from Eric anymore. They were running towards something better. "Of course," I said. "You'll have your own corner suite." Her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ava." As the afternoon light faded, the floor buzzed gently with quiet activity. People touring, signing agreements, sketching ideas on the whiteboards. It was everything I hoped for. Dana approached again. "Full house." "Full house," she said. "You did it." "We did," I corrected. Before leaving, I glanced around the room one more time. The story loft wasn't just a workspace. It was a shift, a pivot, proof that being underestimated doesn't stop someone from building something extraordinary. As the last visitor stepped into the elevator, I locked up for the night. The space glowed softly behind the glass, full of potential. Tomorrow, more people would come. Tomorrow, new stories would begin. And for the first time since the day Eric fired me, I felt something complete and grounding. I had built something better than what I lost. The next morning, I arrived early to check in on the new tenants. The story loft hummed with quiet energy. Soft conversations, laptops opening, people settling into their chosen corners. It felt like a place finally fulfilling its purpose. I made my way through the floor, greeting a few early risers. When the elevator dinged behind me, I turned, expecting another creative team. Instead, Eric stepped out. He looked different, lighter somehow, but also humbled. No suit, no polished confidence, just a man trying to find his footing. "Ava," he said quietly. Dana, who had been reviewing rental contracts nearby, straightened immediately. "Is there an issue?" she asked sharply. Eric raised his hands. "No, I'm not here to cause problems." I walked toward him, stopping a few feet away. "What do you need?" He took a steadying breath. "I wanted to see the space, and I wanted to thank you." The room fell into a soft hush. A few tenants glanced over curiously. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "No," he replied, "but I owe you the truth." He glanced around the transformed floor. "This place, it's everything I wasn't capable of building. And seeing it now, I understand why things fell apart." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I spent years thinking authority came from fear, that being loud meant being strong. But you," he motioned to the floor around us, "you led without saying a word, even when I mistreated you." The honesty in his voice surprised me. "I ruined my own company," he admitted. "You didn't have to push it. I did that." "That's not what I wanted," I said. "I know," he murmured, "and that's why I'm here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is a formal letter," he said. "I'm stepping down as CEO. The team deserves someone better." I blinked. "You're resigning?" "Yes. I need time to rebuild myself before I try rebuilding anything else." He looked down, then back at me. "You didn't destroy me, Ava. You stopped me, and I think I needed that." Dana relaxed slightly, lowering her clipboard. "Where will you go next?" she asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But wherever it is, I'll go quietly." Before he left, he turned to me again. "One last thing," he said. "You built something good here, something real. I hope you know that." I nodded. "I do." Eric gave a small, respectful nod and stepped into the elevator. No theatrics, no bitterness, just a simple exit from a man finally stepping out of his own shadow. As the doors closed, Dana exhaled. "Well," she said, "that was something." "It was," I agreed, but it wasn't closure in the dramatic sense. It was closure in the human sense, the kind that feels clean instead of sharp. I looked around the story loft again, sunlight pouring across fresh whiteboards. Creatives huddled in quiet collaboration, the gentle hum of new beginnings. And I realized something simple and powerful. Eric's chapter was over. Mine was just starting. The days that followed moved with a gentle rhythm. No chaos, no tension, just productivity wrapped in calm. The story loft filled quickly, designers sketching in the corner studio, a small marketing team brainstorming near the windows, freelancers settling into their favorite spots. The fifth floor finally sounded like what it was always meant to be, a place where ideas lived, not fear. One afternoon, as I reviewed rental contracts with Dana, Lena burst in, breathless from excitement. "You won't believe this," she said. "We just landed our first client." Her small team, 4 former Brightwave coworkers, stood behind her, wide-eyed and proud. "That's incredible," I said. "Who?" "A local boutique," she said. "They want branding done. They said we seemed collaborative and confident." "They weren't wrong," I said with a smile. Her eyes softened. "We wouldn't be here without you." "Wrong," I corrected. "You wouldn't be here without yourselves. You just needed space to grow." She swallowed hard, emotion thinning her voice. "Well, thank you anyway." Dana chimed in from behind me. "And don't forget to send Ava your rates chart. Tenants or not, I expect her to get the friends and family discount." Lena laughed, wiping at her eyes. "Deal." As her team returned to their new workspace, Dana nudged me. "It's amazing, isn't it? They came in defeated, and now they're thriving." "They always had potential," I said. "They just needed the right environment." She tilted her head. "Like you?" The question lingered, warm and true. Later that afternoon, I hosted a small gathering, nothing formal, just coffee and pastries for the tenants to mingle. People introduced themselves, swapped ideas, talked about their projects. It hit me then. This community wasn't just forming around me, it was forming with me. A young animator approached shyly. "Miss Coleman, I just wanted to say thank you. I was scared to leave my old job, but this place makes me feel like I can actually succeed." I shook my head gently. "You don't need permission to succeed, just space." He nodded, understanding. As the sun dipped lower, filling the loft with a golden haze, I stood near the window, sipping my coffee, watching groups collaborate freely. People were choosing the 5th floor, choosing the story loft, because it represented what they needed most. A place without fear, a place without egos, a place to build something meaningful. Dana joined me, arms folded, satisfied. "You created this," she said. "Not many people turn something painful into something beautiful." "My mom always said, buildings carry stories," I replied. "Maybe this floor was waiting for the right one." Looks like it found it. We stood there, watching tenants laugh and work and dream, and for the first time since the firing, I felt the full weight of it. Being underestimated didn't hold me back. It pushed me forward, and the 5th floor, once a stage for someone else's control, had finally become what it was meant to be. A home for people ready to rise. A week later, the story loft was fully alive. Each morning brought new energy, doors opening, laptops powering on, people settling into routines that felt grounded and hopeful. The 5th floor had become a small ecosystem, humming with steady creativity. One afternoon, while reviewing schedules with Dana, Lena hurried over again, this time smiling wider than before. "We landed another client," she said. "A big one. They want a full rebrand." "That's incredible," I replied. Her teammates waved from across the room, already scribbling ideas on a whiteboard. "It feels unreal," Lena said. "We're doing better work here than we ever did at Brightwave." "Because you're working without fear," I said. She nodded. "Because we finally feel like ourselves." As she walked away, Dana lowered her voice. "You know what's interesting? Half the people working here were once afraid to speak up. Now they're leading clients, pitching ideas, building teams." "It just shows what happens when people aren't crushed," I said. She gestured around the room. "This is a ripple effect, Ava. You didn't just start a workspace. You started confidence." While she handled a contractor call, I spent the afternoon visiting each corner of the loft, checking in on teams, answering questions, watching the community take shape. The animator I'd spoken to earlier waved me over, excited. "Look," he said, showing me his laptop. "I finished my demo reel. I got 2 callbacks today." "That's amazing," I said. "Proud of you." He grinned. "Feels like things finally make sense." Nearby, the nonprofit team was preparing materials for an upcoming grant meeting. One member looked up. "This place keeps us focused," she said. "It's calm. We can actually think here." Every corner held a story like that. Quiet victories, small breakthroughs, people realizing they were capable. Later, as sunlight filtered through the windows, I stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. Dana joined me. "You know," she said, "someone asked if this floor used to be the Brightwave office. They couldn't believe it." "Good," I said. "It shouldn't look anything like what it used to be." She leaned on the railing. "You've done more than reclaim a building. You've rewritten the energy of an entire floor." I looked through the glass at the people working inside, focused, relaxed, confident. "This feels right," I said. "Because it is right," Dana replied. Before we went back in, she added something quietly. "Eric's downfall wasn't the story. This is." The truth settled gently. The firing, the humiliation, the chaos. It had all faded into something smaller. What remained was this: a place full of people rebuilding themselves,
A floor finally living up to its purpose. A ripple that kept expanding. The Story Loft wasn't just a project anymore. It had become the proof that one moment of being underestimated could lead to something extraordinary. By the next week, the Story Loft wasn't just busy, it was buzzing. New faces came through the doors every day. People stopped by just to see the space everyone keeps talking about. Some came with portfolios, others with half-formed ideas, all of them drawn by the same thing: a reputation for calm, creative freedom. Dana dropped a stack of inquiries on my desk. "You're officially on the map," she said. "People want in." I skimmed the list. Small startups, independent artists, even a local magazine looking for a satellite writing room. "It's growing faster than I expected," I admitted. "That's what happens when a space feels good the moment you step inside," Dana said. Across the room, Lena's team was deep in a client pitch, the kind of session that used to terrify them. Now, they stood confidently around a screen, explaining their ideas with ease. I watched them for a moment, steady, clear, unafraid, and felt something warm settle in my chest. Later that afternoon, Michael stopped by with a folder under his arm. "2 things," he said. "First, congratulations. Occupancy hit 80% today. And second?" I asked. He hesitated. "Eric requested a reference call." I blinked. "For a new job?" "Yes. He listed you as a former colleague." I wasn't expecting that. Michael lifted a brow. "You're not obligated to respond." I thought about it for a long moment. The man who humiliated me, fired me publicly, ignored warnings, ignored people, ignored every sign that his leadership was failing. And then I remembered something else. The man who walked into the Story Loft, humbled, honest, and trying, really trying to start over. "I'll take the call," I said. Michael studied me. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "I don't kick people when they're already down." He nodded, approving. "You're not doing this for him. You're doing it for who you've become." After he left, I reviewed a few tenant emails, then stared out at the floor again. People worked in soft clusters, the animator editing his reel, the nonprofit drafting a proposal, freelancers sharing ideas over coffee, Lena's team refining their brand concepts. This wasn't a workspace. It was a second chance for dozens of people. And maybe, in a strange way, it was also a second chance for me. Late in the afternoon, I stepped into the break area. A young woman I didn't recognize was there, laptop open, typing furiously. "First day?" I asked. She nodded shyly. "Yeah, I left a toxic job last week. Someone told me this place feels different." I smiled. "I hope it does." "It already does," she said. "I've gotten more work done in 2 hours than I used to do in 2 days. That simple sentence landed quietly, deeply. This floor had healed more than just my story. It had become a refuge for anyone who needed to rebuild. When I headed back to my office, Dana intercepted me with a grin. "You know what all of this means, right?" she asked. "What?" "You didn't just survive what happened," she said. "You transformed it." I took a slow breath, letting it settle. The building that once housed my lowest moment was now the home of my proudest achievement. And the story wasn't finished yet. The reference call came 2 days later. I was in my small office at the Story Loft, reviewing floor requests, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered. "Hello, this is Ava." A calm voice replied. "Hi, Ava. I'm calling regarding a candidate, Eric Dalton. He listed you as a reference." I leaned back in my chair, steady. "Of course. What would you like to know?" The caller continued. "He applied for a mid-level strategic role. We're aware he previously led a company, but he was unusually honest about stepping down. We'd like your perspective." Unusually honest. That alone said a lot. I kept my tone professional, balanced. "Eric is skilled," I said, "driven.
He leads with a lot of energy, but he's also learning to collaborate, listen, and rebuild. A short pause. So, you believe he's capable of growth? I do, I said. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Some just need a wake-up call to get there. Another thoughtful silence. Thank you, Ava. That was very helpful. I hung up, the conversation lingering in the air. Not heavy, not emotional, just complete. Minutes later, someone knocked lightly on my door. Lena peeked inside. You free? Yeah, I said. Come in. She took a seat, looking excited. We just landed another project, this time from a national brand. That's incredible, I said. We couldn't have done this before, she added. Being here, it's like everyone's working from a version of themselves we never met at Brightwave. I smiled. That was always inside you. You just needed space to uncover it. She hesitated, then said, Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't gotten fired? Honestly, I said, no, because then none of this would exist. She nodded, fully understanding. When she left, I walked out to the main floor. People were working quietly, sunlight bouncing off screens, soft conversation filling the open space. And there, in the corner, the young animator raised his hand to wave at me. Across the room, the nonprofit team shared a breakthrough idea. Freelancers passed sticky notes between desks, new tenants toured the floor with curious eyes. The story loft wasn't simply functioning, it was thriving. Dana approached, her expression knowing. Michael told me about the call, she said. You handled it well. He's trying, I said. That counts for something. Grace doesn't erase history, she replied. What it does build character. We walked the floor together, checking small updates, labels on lockers, new coffee supplies, a repaired light fixture. Everything felt steady, solid. As we reached the windows, Dana nudged me lightly. You realize the whole building sees you as more than the owner now, right? What does that mean? You're the reason people come here, she said. Not the floor, not the desks. You. The words landed gently, not as pressure, as truth. I glanced around at the community forming around me, each person building something meaningful. Eric was part of my story, but he was no longer the center of it. The center was here. A floor full of people who finally felt safe to try. A future shaped not by fear, but by possibility. And the quiet woman who once got fired for being useless, now standing in the very place she rebuilt from the ground up. 2 weeks later, the story loft hit full capacity. Every desk had an owner. Every corner held a purpose. Every morning began the same way. Quiet energy rising as people arrived, claiming their space with confidence instead of fear. It didn't feel like an office anymore. It felt like a home for ambition. That afternoon, Dana and I conducted our usual walkthrough. Tenants waved as we passed, some deep in projects, others sketching, editing, or quietly collaborating. The place felt warm, lived in. As we neared the back corner, the nonprofit team called me over. We got the grant, one of them said, nearly vibrating with excitement. My eyes widened. Already? Already, she repeated. This space made all the difference. The animator waved from his desk. I got hired remotely, full-time contract. The pride in his voice made me smile. A few desks over, Lena's team cheered loudly. They'd secured yet another client. Their agency was quickly becoming one of the busiest groups in the loft. I stepped back, taking it all in. One decision, one moment of standing tall, had created a ripple that touched dozens of lives. Later, as the day slowed, Michael arrived with updated building documentation. All official, he said. The 5th floor is now registered as a creative hub under your name. My mother would have loved that, I said quietly. She would have been proud.
Michael added. This building finally reflects your family's legacy. We walked the hall toward the elevator together. The walls, freshly painted and decorated with tenant artwork, made the space feel even more personal. Halfway down, the receptionist flagged me from the stairwell. "Someone left this for you," she said, handing me a sealed envelope. A simple note was inside. "Thank you for being kinder to me than I was to you. E.D." I folded the note and placed it in my pocket, not because I needed the apology, but because it marked the end of that chapter completely. When I returned to the story loft, Lena spotted me and jogged over. "Ava," she said softly, "everyone's been talking, and we were wondering." She hesitated. "Wondering what?" I asked. "If you'd ever consider hosting workshops here," she said, "or mentoring, or teaching people how you built all this." I blinked. "Me? Why not you?" she said. "You created something safe, something rare." The idea warmed me. A space built on creativity should also nurture those who fill it. "We can start planning," I said. "Something simple at first." Her entire face lit up. "You have no idea how much that means." And maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't fully grasp what this place meant yet, not just to me, but to everyone who stepped inside. As the sun set, I walked the floor one more time. Light dimmed, voices softened, laptops closed. People packed up peacefully, already excited for tomorrow. The story loft wasn't about revenge or reclaiming power. It was about creating somewhere people could rise without being pushed down. This building was no longer just my inheritance. It was my contribution.
A week later, the Story Loft held its first community gathering. Nothing fancy, just warm lights, a snack table, soft music, and every tenant invited to share what they'd been working on. The floor buzzed with energy. People mingled easily, introductions flowing without effort. Lena's team presented first. They showed their rebrand for the boutique client: clean design, bold color palette, thoughtful messaging. Applause filled the room. Next, the nonprofit shared their grant project. Their passion radiated. "Without this space," one of them said, "we wouldn't have made this deadline." The animator played a short reel from his contract work. His confidence was new, glowing. Artists displayed sketches along the walls. Freelancers talked about collaborations they'd formed here. A small startup demoed their prototype in the lounge corner. Everywhere I looked, creativity was happening out loud. Dana appeared beside me, sipping tea. "You realize this is exactly what you hoped for, right?" I watched a group of tenants laughing, huddled over a sketchbook. "Yes," I said quietly. "It's becoming its own world." She nudged me. "You built a community." "I just made space," I corrected. "Same thing," she replied. As the presentations wrapped, someone called out, "Ava, speech!" I blinked. "What?" "No." But the whole room turned toward me, smiling, waiting. Lena gently pushed me forward. "You don't have to be loud," she whispered. "Just be honest." I stepped to the center of the room, heart steady. "I never planned for any of this," I began. I came back to a building that felt heavy and tired, and then I realized it wasn't the building. It was the energy inside it. I glanced around the room. You all changed that. You filled this floor with ideas, kindness, and courage I've never seen concentrated in one place. Faces softened. A few people nodded. "This isn't my story alone," I said. "It's yours, and I'm grateful you chose to write it here." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was warm, genuine, rooted. Afterward, people returned to mingling. Several approached me with ideas for workshops, collaborations, or simply to say thank you. Near the end of the night, Lena came over holding a small gift bag. "We made this for you," she said. Inside was a tiny wooden sign carved with careful letters. The Story Loft. where quiet beginnings become loud successes. My throat tightened. "This is beautiful," I said. She smiled. "So are you." As the gathering wrapped up, lights dimming and people heading out, Dana tapped my shoulder. "One day," she said, "you're going to look back at this moment and realize it's when everything changed." I looked at the carved sign again, feeling its truth settle deep inside me. Because she was right. The humiliation that once defined the 5th floor was long gone. In its place was something strong, steady, and full of life. The story loft had found its voice, and so had I. The morning after the gathering, the building felt brighter than usual, like even the walls were carrying the energy from last night. I arrived early, coffee in hand, and found a small envelope taped to my office door. No name on the front, simple handwriting. Inside was a short note. "Thank you for creating what we never knew we needed." The loft community. I pressed the note against my chest for a moment. Small gestures had a way of hitting the deepest. As the day began, tenants trickled in with warm greetings. Someone dropped off homemade muffins. Another left a bouquet of wildflowers in the break area. The space wasn't just functioning. It was thriving because people cared. By noon, the floor was humming. Lena's team was filming content for their new client. The nonprofit held a strategy session while sipping tea. Freelancers chatted softly across shared tables. Every corner felt purposeful. Just before lunch, the elevator opened, and Michael stepped out, carrying a thick folder. "Got something for you," he said. He handed it over. Inside were updated records, financial projections, and something that made me pause. Recognition from the Seattle Creative Alliance for outstanding community building and workspace innovation. My eyebrows lifted. "We got nominated?" "You got nominated," Michael corrected. "They've been hearing about the story loft." A ripple of disbelief and pride went through me. "This all started because I got fired," I said quietly. "And look where you ended up," he replied. As he left, Dana came over, waving her phone. "You're trending on local small business forums," she said. "People love the concept." I laughed. "Unbelievable." "Believe it," she said. "You built something rare." Later that afternoon, I stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The view of the street, the movement of people, the quiet city hum, it grounded me. That's when I heard footsteps approaching. It was Eric. He stopped a respectful distance away. No tension, no ego, just honesty. "I heard you got nominated for an award," he said. "I did," I replied. "The space did." He nodded, taking that in. "You deserve it." We stood quietly for a moment, the past between us finally resting instead of burning. "I wanted to say something," he added. "Not an apology, you already got that. Just thank you. I'm in therapy now. I'm rebuilding." "I'm glad," I said, and meant it. He nodded once more before stepping back. "I won't take any more of your time. I just needed to close this chapter the right way." When he walked away, I realized something important. His presence didn't affect me anymore. He no longer held weight in my story. Inside, the loft buzzed with life, a sharp contrast to the energy that once filled this floor. As the sun dipped low, I stood in the center of the story loft and looked around. People creating, people dreaming, people rising. And it struck me. This wasn't just a workspace or a business. This was healing. For them, for me, for the building. The 5th floor had lived through fear, ego, and downfall. Now it was full of light,
Full circle. The night of the Seattle Creative Alliance ceremony arrived faster than I expected. Dana insisted I attend. Lena practically dragged me into getting my hair done. Michael sent a detailed checklist of things to expect, as if I'd never been to a public event before. But stepping into the venue, warm lights, soft music, creative leaders everywhere, I realized why they'd pushed me. This wasn't just an event. It was a moment. We found our table near the front. The air buzzed with quiet anticipation, laughter, and the hum of clinking glasses. People mingled freely, exchanging business cards and warm greetings. I could feel the nerves creeping in, but Dana squeezed my hand under the table. "You belong here," she murmured. The ceremony began with short speeches followed by award categories: innovation, community impact, design excellence. When the presenter stepped up for the Community Workspace of the Year, my pulse quickened. And the winner is a slow breath, a heartbeat. The Story Loft, founded by Ava Coleman. For a moment, I didn't move. The applause didn't feel real, too loud, too bright, too impossible. Lena nudged me gently. "Go." I stood, dazed but steady, and walked toward the stage. The presenter handed me the award, a polished glass plaque engraved with the loft's name. "Congratulations," she said. "Your space has changed the creative landscape of this city." When I reached the microphone, the room quieted. I took a breath. "I didn't plan to create anything like this," I began. "But sometimes life redirects you in ways you never expect." Faces softened, listening. The Story Loft exists because a lot of good people needed a place where they could work without fear. A place that values creativity over ego, respect over control. I glanced toward Dana, Lena, and Michael. They were beaming. I wanted this floor to become something my mother would have been proud of. And looking at this room, and at the community growing inside the Story Loft, I think she would be. The applause rose again, warm and full. After the ceremony, dozens of people approached me. "You inspired us. We want to tour your space." I wish my old job had felt like that. Each conversation felt surreal, but grounded too. Later, outside the venue, Lena wrapped me in a hug. "You did that," she said. "You earned every bit of it." Dana added, "This is only the beginning." Michael nodded in agreement. "More opportunities will come. They always do for spaces that make people feel safe." As we walked back to the car, the cool night breeze brushed past us. The city lights shimmered, and for the first time, I realized something undeniable. I wasn't just running a workspace. I was leading a community, a movement even. The night felt full of pride, of possibility, of the kind of quiet triumph that doesn't shout, but echoes for years. And as I held the award in my hands, I thought back to the day Eric fired me, in front of everyone. He thought he'd ended my story. He had no idea he'd just opened the door to the best chapter of my life. The morning after the award ceremony felt unreal, in the best way. I walked into the Story Loft carrying the plaque in my tote bag, still half convinced someone would tell me it was all a dream. But the moment I stepped inside, reality greeted me in the form of applause. Actual applause. Dozens of tenants stood and clapped as I walked in, smiling, excited, proud. Lena grinned from ear to ear. "Community Workspace of the Year! Ava, that's huge!" I felt my face warm.
It's the space, not me. No, she said. It's you and the space. Dana appeared behind the group, holding a tray of pastries and coffee. We're celebrating, she announced. And yes, it's mandatory. The loft buzzed with happiness. People congratulated me between sips of coffee and bites of croissants. But what struck me most wasn't the award. It was how proud they were. The story loft wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who walked through its doors. After the morning cheers settled, I retreated to my office for a moment of quiet. I placed the award on a shelf next to a small framed photo of my mother. The two looked right together, past legacy and present purpose side by side. A soft knock pulled me from my thoughts. It was the animator, holding a small card. "This is for you," he said shyly. "Just something I wanted to make." Inside was an illustration, the story loft, drawn in warm tones, sunlight spilling in, people working peacefully at their desks. At the bottom, he'd written, "Thank you for creating a place where stories can begin." My throat tightened. Small gestures again. The kind that said everything without needing volume. By noon, things settled back into their normal rhythm. Teams working, meetings happening, keyboards tapping. But the atmosphere was different. Lighter, prouder, unified. Later, Dana and I stepped onto the balcony to breathe in the crisp air. "You know," she said, leaning on the railing, "this award is going to attract even more attention." "I'm ready," I said. She smiled. "You have no idea how far this place can go." We watched the city below, cars weaving through intersections, people bustling, life moving. "It started with getting fired," I said quietly. "Sometimes endings shove us where we were meant to be," she replied. Just as we were about to head back in, my phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, "Invitation, guest speaker opportunity." I opened it. A regional leadership conference. They wanted me to speak about workplace culture, creativity, and building supportive environments. I blinked. "A speaker invitation?" Dana asked, reading my expression. I handed her the phone. She let out a low whistle. "Ava, you're becoming someone people look to for guidance." I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt steady. Because everything, every step, every decision had led here. I typed a simple reply. I'd be honored to speak. When I walked back into the story loft, sunlight washed across the floor, and the soft murmur of creative work filled the air. Not fear, not pressure, not chaos, just possibility. Part 26 wasn't a climax or a conflict. It was something better. A chapter where success didn't feel loud. It felt earned. The leadership conference was held in a sleek downtown auditorium. Rows of chairs, soft stage lighting, quiet anticipation. I arrived early, clutching a simple notepad, not to read from, but to steady my thoughts. Dana and Michael sat in the front row for support. Lena came too, insisting she wouldn't miss history. Backstage, the event coordinator approached. "You're our closing speaker," she said. "Your story resonated with everyone on the committee." "My story?" I repeated. "Yes," she replied. "Turning adversity into a community space this successful? It's rare." When my name was called, the applause washed over me gently. Not overwhelming, just encouraging. I stepped onto the stage. The lights softened as I began. "I wasn't planning to lead anything," I said. "I wasn't planning to create a community.
I was planning to survive. A quiet murmur of understanding swept the room. And then one day, I was publicly fired, humiliated, told I was useless. A few heads shook, some leaned forward, but that moment redirected my life. I walked out of a toxic environment and stepped into the truth I'd been ignoring. I already had the ability to build something better. I spoke about the building, my mother's legacy, and the moment I chose to act, not with anger, but with purpose, about the story loft, about the tenants finding their voices, about courage growing in quiet corners. You don't have to be loud to change things, I said. You just have to stop shrinking yourself. A hush filled the room, deep, reflective. I ended with, leadership isn't about control. It's about creating environments where people rise. When I finished, the applause was warm and sincere. After stepping off stage, Lena threw her arms around me. You were incredible. You made half the room cry. Dana nodded proudly. And the other half reconsider their entire work culture. Michael smiled. This will bring more opportunities. Be ready. Throughout the networking session afterward, people approached me nonstop. I want to visit your workspace. We need more places like the Story Loft. Your story reminded me of why I started my career. Each conversation felt meaningful, grounded, not overwhelming. Back at the loft later that evening, I walked the floor slowly. People were finishing up work, packing bags, saying goodbye to their teams. The energy was calm, safe, alive. The Story Loft had become more than a recovery from humiliation. It had become a blueprint, proof that kindness, boundaries, and vision could reshape lives. As I locked up for the night, the city lights reflected across the windows. Part 27 wasn't about a speech. It was about stepping fully into the person I'd always been becoming. The morning after the conference, I returned to the Story Loft expecting a normal day. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt different. Warmer, quieter, almost reverent. Tenants worked calmly, but there was an unusual focus in the air. Lena hurried toward me, her eyes bright. Someone's here to see you, she whispered, and I think it's important. Before I could ask who, I saw her. An older woman standing near the window, holding a worn leather journal. Her expression soft, thoughtful, familiar in a way I couldn't place. She approached slowly. You must be Ava, she said. I am, I replied. How can I help you? She opened the journal. Inside, a faded photograph of my mother standing in this very building decades ago. My breath caught. I'm Nora, she said gently. Your mother and I were close friends. We worked in this building when it first opened. I felt the room tilt slightly. I haven't seen this place in years, Nora continued, but when I heard what you've done, I had to come. She walked with me through the loft, smiling softly at the creative buzz filling every corner. Your mother always dreamed of this, she said, a place where people could create freely, without fear or ego. She talked about it constantly. My chest tightened. She believed buildings could heal, Nora added. She said this one had a special spirit, and she hoped someday her daughter would carry that forward. Tears pricked my eyes, quiet, unexpected. Did she really say that? I asked. All the time, Nora said warmly. She always knew you'd do something meaningful here, even before you knew it. We stood in the center of the loft, sunlight spilling across the floor. I'm proud of you, Nora said, and she would be too. Her words settled deep inside me, like something locking into place. Dana approached quietly. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded, wiping my eyes softly. This is Nora. She knew my mom. Dana's expression softened immediately. I'm so glad you visited, she said to Nora. Ava's built something extraordinary. Nora smiled. It's exactly what this building was meant for. She handed me the journal. Your mother wanted you to have this someday. Inside were notes, sketches, and pieces of her vision. Ideas for a community workspace long before co-working even existed. A blueprint for the story loft before it had a name. My throat tightened. Thank you, I whispered. Nora touched my hand gently. You honored her dream without even knowing it. She stayed a little longer, watching the tenants work, soaking in the life filling the floor. This place is alive again, she said. You brought it back. When she finally left, I stood alone with the journal pressed against my heart. The story loft wasn't just mine. It wasn't born from revenge or survival. It was a continuation, a legacy I hadn't known I was fulfilling. A story that began long before Eric, long before Brightwave, long before I stepped into that boardroom the day I was fired. Part 28 wasn't about the past returning. It was about finally understanding where I came from and why I was always meant to build something here. I stayed late that evening, long after the tenants headed home. The story loft felt different with the lights low, quiet, reflective, almost sacred. Nora's visit lingered in my mind. Her words, my mother's journal, the realization that I hadn't stumbled into this path. I'd been walking toward it my whole life without knowing. I sat at one of the long tables near the windows and opened the journal again. Inside were sketches of open floor plans, notes about shared creativity, and small doodles of plants she wanted in every corner. She had even written, "A place where people feel safe enough to dream." I traced the words with my thumb. She had imagined the story loft before I was even old enough to understand what dreaming meant. A soft knock pulled me from the moment. It was Dana. "You're still here," she said. "I figured," I smiled. "Just thinking." She sat across from me, glancing at the journal. "That belonged to your mom?" "Yeah," I whispered. "She planned something like this before she passed." "I didn't know." Dana exhaled softly. "That makes what you built even more meaningful." "I didn't do it on purpose," I said. "Maybe not," she replied. "But purpose doesn't always show itself at the beginning." We let the silence stretch. "A comfortable one. I think I understand now," I said. "Why this place feels so personal. Why it felt wrong under people like Eric. Why I couldn't just lease it out again." "It's hers," Dana said gently. "And it's yours." I closed the journal and looked around the loft. Paper lanterns glowing softly, plants lining the windows, desks arranged with intention. "This building finally feels like home," I murmured. "And you finally feel like the person who owns it," Dana replied. The words settled, deep, warm. A vibration buzzed in my pocket. "Lena," I answered. "Hey, everything okay?" Her voice came through trembling with excitement. "Ava, our agency just signed a long-term contract with the brand we pitched. It's huge. We're officially a full-time team now." I grinned. "Lena, that's incredible." "You helped us believe we could do this," she said. "This place helped us." After congratulating her, I hung up, still smiling. The loft was changing lives. Not dramatically, not loudly, but steadily, quietly, just like my mother believed spaces could. Dana stood and stretched. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's lock up. Big day tomorrow." "Why tomorrow?" I asked. She smirked. "We're announcing your nomination publicly. People will want to meet you. Better get some sleep." I laughed as we walked to the door. But before we shut off the lights, I turned back for one last look. The story loft glowed like a living thing, warm, full of potential, filled with stories still unfolding. I whispered a quiet promise. I'll take care of this place. I'll take care of them. Because for the first time, everything felt aligned. My past, my purpose, my future. Part 29 wasn't about success. It was about understanding. The story loft didn't just rise from a firing or revenge or reclaiming power. It rose from legacy, one I was finally ready to carry forward.
The next morning, sunlight spilled across the story loft like a quiet blessing. Tenants arrived early, more energized than usual. Laughter echoed softly, keyboards clicked in steady rhythm, coffee brewed in the lounge. The space felt alive, not just functional, but alive. Dana met me in the hallway. "Ready?" she asked. "For what?" She handed me her phone. The story loft was trending. Photos from the award night, clips of my conference speech, testimonials from tenants saying how the loft changed their lives. But one headline stood out. The building that became a community. My chest tightened, not with anxiety, but with something deeper. Pride, purpose, belonging. We stepped into the loft, and everyone paused to look at me, not out of obligation, but warmth. Lena approached first. "We saw the article," she said. "You deserve every bit of recognition." Her team gathered behind her, smiling, thriving, changed. "It's not just me," I said. "It's all of you." "As a community," she corrected. "One you built." Across the room, the animator held up his tablet. "My contract got extended, and they want more work. This place made that possible." The nonprofit waved from their corner. "We got approved for another grant," a small startup called out. "We're launching next month." I took it all in. Not chaos, not fear, not ego, just people rising in ways they couldn't before. Dana leaned close. "This is what leadership looks like. Quiet, steady, and transformative." I exhaled. "It doesn't feel like leadership." "That," she said, "is why it works." As the morning moved on, a small visitor arrived, the receptionist guiding her gently. It was Nora. She smiled warmly as she approached. "I wanted to see how it looks now." "Come in," I said. "Everything you told me helped me understand this place." She walked through the loft slowly, touching a desk here, admiring a mural there, absorbing the energy. "It's exactly what your mother imagined," she said. "You carried her dream further than she ever hoped." Emotion rose quietly in my throat. "I wish she could see it," I murmured. "Oh, she does," Nora whispered. "Buildings remember the people who love them." We stood together in the center of the loft, the place where it all began, the place where it all healed. After Nora left, the loft returned to its gentle rhythm. People worked, talked, created. Life continued. And I realized I wasn't just part of the story anymore. I was the one shaping it. The girl who was fired in front of a room full of people, the one called useless, the one dismissed and underestimated, was now standing at the heart of a thriving creative community inside a building she owned, fulfilling a legacy she never knew she was born for. No revenge, no anger, just the sweetest justice. Becoming everything they said I couldn't. As the day ended and the sun dipped low, I closed my notebook and whispered a quiet truth. This is only the beginning, because it was. And the story loft, filled with light, with growth, with possibility, was ready for all the stories still waiting to be written. The end. But not the end of what comes next.